Ladies and gentlemen, we are here, first of all, as an institution that was inspired by the remarks from President Lungu, where he said that it's time for us to begin rethinking our maize dependence. HIVOS has been, for some time, been working around the issue of ending monodiet.
We were recently rated as one of the hungriest countries in the world, mainly because, not that we don't have food, but because mainly we eat maize. The question is, how is, in reference to climate change, the government responding to the aspect of diversification?
We can see the effects of climate change. I think our challenge now is to take this discussion further down to the ordinary person, even in areas where we'd expected that there should be decent rainfall. Sometimes there's not enough rainfall. Agriculture is most impacted as a result of climate change, because when seasons change, crops fail. When seasons change, you need to respond with new crops. We've realized as a country that our food basket is very limited, and this is why you saw us being very low in terms of the World Hunger Index. And clearly we did argue that there were other variables that should have been considered, consumption patterns and so on and so forth. But all the same, I think we did take note, and it woke us up, and we learned a few lessons, and it brought the agenda of crop diversification really to the fore. That if science is telling us that maize is less nutritious compared to cassava, compared to sorghum, compared to millet, compared to other food crops, if science is telling us that, well, that means that we should actually be informed and make decisions that are informed. And if they're scientifically informed, even better. When the president referred to maize dependency, he did not say, let us replace maize. No, he was just saying, let us add other foodstuffs to the food basket. We know that a crop like groundnuts is very healthy and nutritious for children, but also it has value for a farmer. The Natal groundnuts are costing $1,000 per ton. What makes more business sense? Growing a crop for $120 per ton compared to one that will give you $1,000 per ton? Because then you'll be able to buy other food crops. So we are just saying it's not a debate of replace maize. It's an issue of let's add other food crops. So as far as diversification is concerned, it means that we need to do soil mapping, which I know the Ministry of Agriculture is already doing, to ensure that we know which soils respond to which crops. The farmer can't grow a crop if the seeds are not available.
And let me just say, I don't know who bewitched us to be growing only maize. If you remember our history in this country, we were not even depending on maize like we are depending on maize now. And we survived as a country. Somebody may say maybe it's because the population was small. Well, we could have grown what we were eating with the population. To begin with, the farmers themselves inherently have diversified. That's what we must understand. You go on this farm, you find they are keeping chickens, they are growing maize, they are also growing groundnuts, they are also growing bambara nuts. They are diversified by nature of what they are. But unfortunately, the diversification is very, very small. It's at small scale level. They are growing small amounts. But if we can have a situation where these guys can have market for these products, the diversification will definitely increase.
We may need to realize that as we talk about dietary diversity, we are actually encouraging, consuming of the various foods from different food groups. We know that currently the diversity of our foods is quite limited. From a score of 13, we have grouped foods into 13 groups, and from the 13 food groups, the average currently in Zambia is 5, and that's quite low. Our target through the 7th National Development Plan is that Zambia should have a score of diversity in terms of food consumption of 8. And so we have a lot of work to do. Now, what we realize is that it's not just the food that is available. It's the nutrients that are inside that food that is important, because food is just a vehicle for nutrients. For as long as we have a limited diet, then we are not getting adequate nutrients. We need to diversify the diet.
Biggest question that these people would like to know is, if you are telling us to rethink Shima dependency, what is the way forward? What have you started doing as government to start diversifying?
Diversification means that we must do the soil mapping, which I said Zari was already doing. We must provide the seeds for the farmers to grow other crops, which I said Zari and the Seed Certification Institute are already doing. We must do the extension services, which I think we've continued to do. We have to partner with organizations such as yours to ensure that the farmers see the monetary value also of diversifying in terms of the value chains. We have to make sure that there's a market. That's obvious. If the farmers don't see a market for their crops, as somebody rightly pointed out, in the 50s, in the 60s, maize was not really the number one food in Zambia. People ate different types of food.
Food fortification has been a song since the Kaunda days. When is this song going to end? What are the restrictions that we are facing as a commission?
Yes, government had 15 years ago, through the National Food and Nutrition Commission, we said let's fortify maize meal. But then we realized that we did not have adequate data to know who is affected with certain nutrient deficiencies, because you fortify by including certain nutrients in certain foods to meet the dietary needs of the nutrient needs of the population. So this year in May, we are doing a national food consumption survey to understand where the gaps are, and that will now enable us to fortify selected foods.
I think every year, whenever there's a conversation about increased mealie meal prices, there then tends to be a discussion with regards to subsidizing the cost of mealie meal for consumers. I just wanted to ask a question. Whenever this conversation takes place, are we not, to some extent, therefore, almost promoting this dependency on maize, as opposed to rather asking consumers to be looking at alternative foods?
If crop diversification is going to work, we must invest as many resources in other crops as well, so that we can increase their production. Because the reason government is usually forced to subsidize maize is because it has been supported so much and production is high, so there's always consistent supply of food. While if somebody wanted to eat cassava or something else, the supply on the market is not as consistent and not in the required numbers to support the whole nation.
Maybe let me also answer the fact that we appreciate government as diversified of grain, but we are also appealing that apart from grain, probably we could move also to other things like vegetables, because they will give more money to the small scale farmer. And probably appeal that FISIP does not close. I'm speaking to a high level placed minister and appealing that FISIP, Madam Honorable Minister, should not close, so that the farmers continue diversifying throughout the year.
And when we're talking about diversification, I only hope that the Honorable Minister here is not just making political statements, because the issue of diversification is not new. It has been there in the past, and we don't seem to diversify. We are always wanting to diversify, but we don't actually do. But I'm thinking we are seeing a critical need to diversify into a number of food products. We need to introduce more of the seed crops, grain crops. We've just been told here that we have a number exceeding 300 food varieties. I want to see how government is going to proceed on this, especially when we are talking about fighting the disease burden that is coming as a result of lifestyle, and also maintaining a nutritious society.
He did say, I hope crop diversification is not political. I don't know what is political about government saying we are supporting not just maize. We are going to support maize, orange maize, sorghum, millet, cotton, groundnuts, sunflower, sweet potatoes, rice, and so on. I don't know what is political about that. Government committed to We have to move from supporting one crop to supporting 10 crops so that we precipitate crop diversification even by the private sector. Now, we have considered that that's the input side of things. We need now the output side, the issues that you raised. The farmer needs to be supported with market access, with price discoveries, with financing from the banks, with storage, with irrigation, with insurance. All these issues we are saying, they are the next stage. After production, we have to address these issues. So crop diversification is real.
My question is, what is the National Food and Nutrition Commission doing about promoting, the uptake of these other foods?
What we would do is that after the food consumption survey that we are to undertake starting in May, once we know the levels of consumption of sorghum, of millet, and different foods, then we are now going to come up with a strategy to promote certain foods. But we have in place right now a recipe booklets and these are standard recipes of how certain foods are prepared and are consumed.
Make the local food sexy, as we would like it to be. Attach them to things that the young people and the adults would like to see, and you will see the uptake.
We are not advocating for phasing out Nshima. I think we must not go away with that impression. No one is advocating for getting rid of maize or Nshima. No, that is not what we are saying. The president's core was clearly, yes, let's eat maize. But if we will have more nutrition by eating, including other food products in our food basket, let's do that. If we can make more money on the return on our investment by also including other crops as farmers, let us do that. If we can find more markets for other crops that will help the country, let's do that. Nobody is advocating that we must stop eating Shima.
We are so grateful that we've taken time to talk about this. For us to bring about change, we would need to first of all work on the mind. And this is a conscientization process that we've embarked on today. So we need to keep the conversation going. And as HIVOs, I think we shall be ready to actually explore more about these options for maize and ensure that there's more information out there.
We are very, very grateful. Everybody who has found time to come and partner with us on this cause. These are the issues that government would like us to be discussing. They call these the real issues that cut across everybody.
No woman, no cry. No woman, no cry. No woman, no cry. No woman, no cry. Said I remember when